Welcome to the Kick Sugar Coach podcast. Join me each week as I interview experts who will share the science of sugar, sugar addiction, and different approaches to recovery. We hope to empower you with the information and inspiration, insights, and strategies you need to break up with sugar and fall in love with healthy whole foods so you can prevent and reverse chronic disease, lose weight, boost your mood and energy. Feel free to go to my website for details on my coaching programs and to access free resources, kicksugarcoach.com. Welcome, everybody, to the Kick Sugar Coach podcast. I have with me today a very special guest, Rich. We should probably get your full name on the screen. Let me just rename that right now. That's not possible. I'm going to move on. Rich is 78 years old, despite how he looks, much younger, with so much enthusiasm for life. And this man's on a mission. This man's on a mission to awaken the world to the very serious harms of sugar consumption. And he has his own story of how he discovered the fact that sugar is a poison. And once we get off it, miraculous transformations can happen for us. 6 years ago, Rich was sick, like things were falling apart for him. He'll share a photo later in the interview of his swollen legs that were, like that for 2 years. And just by the grace of the universe, he met a functional medical doctor or a naturopath who said, Rich, I'm going to put you on a sugar detox. 21 days later, he had a massive transformation, and he has not stopped researching sugar. He is literally like a dog on a bone. He is in the midst of writing a book that we are all going to hold our breath for, because it will be very unique in the space, because he pulls together the science and comes from so many different angles that we're going to talk about in the interview today. But basically, the book is going to be called Killing Us Softly. And what else to mention? I think that's good for now. Welcome, Rich.
Well, thank you, Florence. First of all, it's killing you softly, okay? But it could be either one.
Okay. Sorry.
6 years ago, I was dead man walking. I was, 72. And I had swollen feet, high blood pressure, aches and pains, low energy. I mean, it's just strange things, kidney stone attack, Bell's palsy. I said, I'm 72. That's what happens. You die. I guess this is it. I sold half my stock back to the company and started preparing for that downward spiral. And, I don't know who believes in miracles, but I'm a miracle believer. I'm in this downward spiral. I suddenly I buy all these books from Amazon. I get this book called Sugar Crush. It's by Dr. Richard Jacoby. I didn't know who he was, but it had the word inflammation by a cupcake. I said, inflammation. Huh. Read the book, and for some reason, I took it to my office. And the day I took it to the office, I'm hiring a new kid to be a listing agent. He's a Colombian. Had his wife. He said, "Can I bring my wife in?" And I've never had anybody bring their wife in for an interview. I said, okay. Well, his wife is an Iranian gal they've got married in Canada, and she's a holistic doctor. So I finished the interview, going to hire Gus, and I looked at Dr. Ross and I hold up Sugar Crush. I've got it right here. And I said, hey, I just read this book. Looks like sugar's not too good for you. And she looks at me, and then she looks at my feet, says, you should do a detox. I said, what? What do you mean? I said, what is it? She said, 21 days. No sugar, no carbs, no booze. And I was okay to shed the no booze. And I went, whoa, I said, well, I'll try it. So I did it. And 2 of the first 5 days, I had to leave the gymnasium. I couldn't finish. I was so weak. I was a little bit down. I was low energy. I didn't know I was detoxing a poison. Day 6, I felt better. Well, here was my feet. But here was my feet. All right. Now, day 7, there's my feet.
Wow.
7 days, my swelling went down. 21 days later, I've dropped 22 pounds. And the beauty of her program, I didn't diet. I didn't count calories. I was eating whatever I wanted, except nothing with sugar. 4 egg omelets, chicken thighs with skin on it, all kinds of vegetables, salads with salmon, chicken. I'm eating macadamias and pistachios and almonds. Whoa. But what was weird, I didn't know it, but I wasn't really hungry, like it was before. And I was feeling better, energy. I lifted the weights up. and all my weights, I was like through the roof. I said, what? 21 days later, I'm saying, what the heck? And that started me on the journey. I said, I got to read more on this. And I got found Dr. Lustig's famous video on YouTube, which is grad students. I think they've had 21 or 22 million viewings. It's probably the most watched uh, university video in the history of mankind. I said, whoa, I didn't understand half of it, but I understood sugar is bad for you. But the book Sugar Crush, obviously, Dr. Jacoby is tired of cutting people's, feet off because they had, advanced diabetes. And it's like, wow, there's something going on here, which prompted me to read all those books, about 25 of them, hundreds of articles, hundreds of webcasts, podcasts. And I thought, I kept thinking, God, my life's been saved. I mean, when I went with my metabolic syndrome to the doctors, they did what doctors are trained to do: give you a pill to treat the symptoms of sugar addiction. Statins, diuretics, blood pressure medicine, pills, pills, pills. They could have just said, hey, Rich, just quit eating all the crap you're eating. You'll be all right. No. And of course, in our sick care system, our healthcare system in the United States and the world, nobody makes any money, doing that. But we'll talk about that later on. But so I got into it. I started reading the book, started in the research. And what I want to say right now, and Florence, you can come in anytime you want to, but I'm going to get going here. But, I want to set the stage because the hardest thing is telling somebody sugar is bad. They don't believe you. They don't want to believe you. And I want to start with where we get information from. Well, we get it from the government. We get it from the doctors. We get it from the newspapers. All right. Well, let's back up 2,000 years. Money, avarice, greed. Some guy 2,000 years ago was talking about. He talked about that more than did about love. He did turn water into wine, red wine at the wedding of Cana. But this guy, maybe he was a son of God, maybe he was a prophet, maybe he was a magician, whoever he was. But he warned us about money and greed. If you look at it in our society, in our government, big government, we know about the corruption. We know about 2007 and 8, about that big fiasco, what caused it. We know that of our 28 wars since 1898, you can argue 24 we shouldn't have been in, but they're driven by money interests. Some corporation wanted the banana plantation back, or, military industrial complex wanted to be in Vietnam. Whatever it is, they're making money. Just look at tobacco. It took 50 years to get those profit-seeking, greedy guys out of the picture. Not out of it, but, reduced. The Congress has run up 31 trillion in debt. Well, what's that about? Our sick care system. It's in hospitals, insurance companies, the doctors. They're making money, but 2% of the money spent on preventive medicine, 98% is on stuff probably a lot of it could have been avoided. COVID. Did we get the straight scoop on COVID? About the vaccines. I could go on for hours. In fact, I got a chapter in my book about COVID, the lost opportunity to tell people the truth about sugar and processed foods. It's just amazing. But the biggest one now, and this is the one that kills more people than anything else in the world, is big sugar. Now, who's big sugar? Anybody who makes money off sugar, not just people who grow it. Fast foods, processed foods, soft drinks, cakes, candy, cookies, M&Ms, you name it. And the one that makes the most, big pharma. Big pharma. Well, they're peddling those pills to treat the symptoms of sugar addiction, and they train the doctors to do that. Well, doctors, why shouldn't they be a first line of defense? Well, what percent of doctors receive nutritional training? Less than 1%. Why is that? Who influences the curriculums at medical schools? Big pharma. Who covers about 50% of the advertising in newspapers and periodicals and on the internet? Who's the biggest advertiser? Big pharma. Who's got 2,087 lobbyists lobbying Congress, giving money away like popcorn? Big pharma. Wow, how about that? So I got on all these books, and you've had a lot of them on your summits, and some really, really great people. Of course, John Yudkin, who you haven't had because he's dead. The poor guy wrote the book, Poor, White, and Deadly, right here.
Pure white and deadly.
First one out to tell the truth. And what happened? What happened? It got buried. The sugar industry, big sugars. Oh, we don't want that. We're making $1 trillion a year. We don't want that out. So Ansel Keys pops up and says fat's bad for you. Just the first of many lies from Coca-Cola and the sugar industry and all the rest of them. You know, that was a big lie. Uh, Calories in, calories out is a lie. You know, salt's the problem with heart problems, not sugar. I mean, the lies go on and on and on, but they discredited this poor guy. This guy had the truth. He was on it. He got kicked out of conference. He got kicked out of honorariums. It was just they were murderous. And I'm so proud of Dr. Lustig because in the 2012 edition of this book, if you haven't read it, you should read it. He did a beautiful forward talking about how lonely and desperate, must have been so sad to have this guy out there by himself. Um, but you've had Dr. Robert Johnson. I read both of his books, Fat Switch and The Sugar Fix. Great books. Of course, Dr. Lustig, the new godfather of the anti-sugar movement. I mean, Lutkin was first, but Dr. Lustig has taken this mantle, and boy, he's going for it. But Fat Chance, Hacking the American Mind, Metabolical. You ought to read all three of them. I mean, they're just, if that doesn't convince you, then you've got a reading problem. Gary Taubes, The Case Against Sugar, one of the few non-doctors. Great book. Dr. David Perlmutter, Drop Acid. A lot of doctors don't know about uric acid and what that means. He explains it very succinctly. Denise Menger did the Death by Food Pyramid. Dr. Joel Furman, Fast Food Genocide. Dr. James Nicolatino, the Salt Fix. Great read. Tony Robbins' Life Force is very interesting. A lot of state-of-the-art stuff going on about healthcare and future, but he only gave Dr. Lustig about a third of a page. He should have given a whole chapter, but it's a really good read. Dr. Josh Axe, the keto diet. And the latest one I haven't read, I've just ordered, Dr. Christian Palmer, Brain Energy. We'll talk more about that later, about depression, what he's doing to cure it. It's mind blowing. But big sugar lies. I mean, they love to lie to us. They love to confuse us. They love to keep us divided, and they love to give us too much information. But as Dr. Lustig said, 75% of the healthcare costs in the United States of America are attributed back to what we eat in terms of sugar, processed foods, bad stuff that's just killing us. And it's a lot of money. We're talking about trillions of dollars a year that could be prevented. Now, the other side of the problem is besides having a bad sick care system, is our food care system. I hate to even call it food. 75% of the food in the supermarket is processed or has sugar in it, which means you shouldn't be eating it. Now, what chance anybody have? We don't know what's going on. We haven't been informed. We have no idea. The government hasn't told us. News media hasn't told us. The doctors haven't told us. And all the food around there, the fast food, all the crap, is like making us sicker and sicker and sicker. Why is the United States of America, the richest country in the history of mankind, life expectancy dropping for the last 4 years, dropping before the pandemic? Now they'll act like it was a pandemic. No, it's been dropping before that. Why? Why is the United States ranked number 26 out of 37 countries, the OECD countries, in terms of life expectancy? Why? Well, because we were the first generation of sugar addicts. We were the first. Now we're the third. And also, since 1965, the healthcare as a percent of GDP has increased 400%. Man, where's that taking us? But the United States of America is in a third generation of sugar addicts. And let's go back in history. Let's go back 10,000 years ago. Nobody's eating sugar. Occasionally somebody stumbled onto a beehive, get some honey, but they were eating fruit, which is fine. I hope we all know why that's fine, because of fiber, soluble, non-soluble fiber. I could talk about that for a while. But so nobody's eating sugar. And then about 500 years ago, they started getting some sugar back when they were coming over the Americas and into Europe. It's very expensive. The only people who got fat and gout were the ones that were rich. You can see pictures of the bishops and the nobles and the kings. But it didn't really get started getting processed about 150 years ago. It started going mainstream about 1900. But two things slowed it up: World War I and World War II, sugar rationing. So we didn't really get out until after World War II. It started coming out everywhere. It started going to food, and then processed food, TV dinners, and all back the time when I was a kid. I'm part of the first generation sugar addicts. Now, my mom God bless her. She didn't know that drinking was bad for you or that smoking when she was pregnant, but she was eating real food. Thank God. That's probably how I escaped. But today, the mothers, they're not smoking. They're not doing drugs. They're not drinking. During pregnancy, what are they doing? They're eating pizza. They're eating donuts. They're eating ice cream. They're eating fast food. They're eating junk food. They're eating all this crap that they're addicted to. And it's horrible what it's doing to our kids. But the United States is now in its third generation of sugar addicts. Is why we're the fattest country in the world. We've got 128 million pre-diabetics or diabetics. We had the highest percentage of death rate due to COVID. And now we spread that crap, our food system, our Western diet to Europe, Central, South America, and Australia. They're second generation sugar addicts. And Asia now is first generation sugar addicts. We're seeing fat Asians, first time in history, you know? So good job, corporate America. Good job, poison the world. Good job, sick in the world. But we got to stop this stuff. Now, how do we do it? Well, before I do that, let me just do one segue. Depression and suicide. This has been bothering me. You know, when I was a kid, I didn't know anybody's depressed. No kids are ADHD. No kids are taking what is it? The
Ritalin.
uh, what that stuff
Ritalin.
is for ADHD. Yeah,
Ritalin.
yeah. Ritalin. I mean, didn't see it. But if you take a chart of sugar consumption in the United States of America, over the last 75 years, you can put the same depression chart for depression and suicide in the same line. And Dr. Lustig and other doctors explain why this happens. I could go into it right now. We could talk about it in a little bit, Florence, you want to, but the, you know, 43% of Americans are unhappy. Uh, and 83% of Americans say they'd rather be happy than rich, but they're getting worse and worse. And I'd mentioned about Dr. Palmer. He's a psychiatrist, Harvard trained, very sharp guy. And he says it's not helping people. We got them on pills. And boy, pills, big pharma, got them on the pills, but it's not helping. Nobody's getting better. And, he's starting to cure and have tremendous success with bipolar, depression, uh, schizophrenic. He's having great results. And you know what he's doing? Put him on a keto diet and low carb diet, no carb. I mean, and he said, what? And he just found us out almost by accident. So now they got some series. They're getting ready to quantify this in some trials, which I'm very excited about. So it all ties together. All these other great doctors and research, it's all starting to come together. But we got a big battle. We're up against a lot of money. And the Congress ain't going to say a word because they can't get reelected without the lobbyist money. The news media may make it because they're paying all for all they advertise. And the doctors haven't been trained. So it's grassroots. It's great. And we got to do it. And, you're doing it, Florence. I mean, God bless you. But we all got to do it. So, and I've got my couple of my chapters. One of my chapters in my book is called "Kiss, Keep It Simple, Stupid," because again, big sugar wants us all confused, too much information, and there's 147 diets out there, and yet really none of them work. I mean, if you don't, I don't really call keto diet. To me, keto is not eating sugar, but if the diet industry is $72 billion a year, if diets worked, they wouldn't have any money. They doesn't work. So they love to keep us confused. They love to blame us. We're not disciplined enough to go exercise. It's our fault. No, it's not our fault. We're sugar addicts, and we got to quit the sugar because there's three things you got to do to be healthy in life, to look good and to feel good, and have the last quarter of your life being your best quarter. And that is eat real food, exercise, and sleep. I get 7, 8 hours of sleep every night. I sleep like a baby. I don't take any pills. Exercise 5 days a week, and I eat real food. And my last quarter is my best quarter. So, and we can talk about the tobacco template last or save it, for a little later. Maybe you want to jump in here, but you know, I've got my two little solutions on about following what we did with tobacco. But did you want to? I've been
Yeah.
talking too much.
Oh
Lawrence?
no, you're doing great. Keep going, keep going. You just go where you feel called to go, and I think
Okay. Well,
talk about the tobacco.
it's like I love the tobacco idea because when I was 7, 8 years old, I remember watching, and again, probably most people here didn't have that experience, but I watched black and white TV because I didn't have color. And I remember the doctor coming out and he's got a cigarette, and he's got a smock on, a stethoscope, and looks very professional. And the voiceover is, more doctors prefer Lucky Strikes. Whoa, Lucky, I'm a little kid, okay, and all these things. And they had one deal. Camels would have a deal. All these different doctors, these surgeons and all the different disciplines, they prefer camels, and all these advertisements with doctors. More energy, feel better, relaxing. So, all of us kids were smoking candy cigarettes, and of course couldn't wait to smoke for real. So, I had my first one at 14 or 15, and it's like, but they just bombarded us. And, you know, where did they go then? Well, it started out, it was obvious smoking's bad, but it took literally 30, 40 years. It took 30 years, what, until 1972 to get the last tobacco ad off television. It was actually on the Johnny Carson show. And even then, people still smoking, but it's gradually they started now putting the labels, took it out of schools. Finally, the government got to get behind it, and then the news media got behind it. Now they all ganged up on the tobacco companies and the lawsuits. Oh man! So in the '80s, tobacco companies said, "Oh man, what are we going to do? They're after us." And so they said, "Where can we go with our money?" Well, the largest leverage buyout in the '80s, the largest leverage buyout in the 1980s was the purchase of Nabisco by a tobacco company. And then they bought Kraft Foods. They bought General Foods. They moved from nicotine addiction into sugar addiction. Use the same market. So now it's legal. And it's what a great deal. It's even more addictive. And it get everybody this way. They make more money. I mean, what a bunch of crooks. And we're letting them get away with it. And it's so sad. And of course, with tobacco, they just went after all the third world countries. And now that they put all the stuff that the United States have done to the other countries that need the money more. At least the United States, we've reduced cigarette smoking from 42% down to 12%. Took us 40 years. We did it. And that's our template for sugar. We can do it. And Dr. Lustig talks about the 30-year cycle. We're in year 10, got 20 more years to go. I hope we can do it quicker. Because I'm inviting people to my 100th birthday party. So I got 22 years to go. So I hope we can do this quicker. But it's like, we got to get sugar labeled. We got to get other schools. We got to get the Congress to understand it, inform the people. We got to get the news media to talk about it. We got to get our doctors. Nutrition should be required for every doctor and every discipline, including dentists. They should all understand what Dr. Lustig tells us and his other great doctors. They need to be trained. They need to be our frontline defense. And we can do it. And we got to tax the hell out of it too. Tax it, tax it, tax it. We can do it. And if people want to eat sugar, then at least they're informed. Just like tobacco smokers, they're informed. They want to smoke, they can do it. But if we can reduce it by 75%, that saves trillions of dollars and millions of lives. Instead of having a lousy last quarter of your life, have a great last quarter. That's it.
Oh, Rich.
And finally, and I'm just suggesting in my book at the very end, hey, no diet, eat all you want, just no sugar. Just do the detox. 21 days. Have a miracle like that. Once you get that miracle, you'll never go back. It's done. I don't crave sugar. I don't want it. And everything else tastes better. I'm happy. Energy's up. I'm having a good life. And but I feel like it's a miracle. I'm alive today. I want to get back, and that's why I'm writing my book, "Killing You Softly."
Killing You Softly.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is so inspirational. And it's so awesome for those of us who've been walking this path for 30 plus years. I first read the Sugar Blues when I was in my 20s. And from the Sugar Blues, in the back of the book were references. One of the references was to Yudkin's book, Pure, White, and Deadly. And I read that book.
Oh, wow.
And then I went to the back of all of his references and I wrote away, yes, the Sugar
Blues.
Totally. And then I wrote away to universities and I asked for the research that Yudkin was referencing. And I had all these and back then in those days, it was like Dewey Decimal System. There was no internet. I hand wrote letters to universities asking them for these research papers. Wow. And they sent them to me and they emailed me. Wow. They didn't email me. I'm sorry. They mailed them to me. And eventually I decided, you know what? I'm really onto something here. Like this sugar is addictive. It's really not great for the mind and the body. And it's very implicated in eating disorders, especially for women, because I felt like we were so hooked into it and that no one was talking about it. And how to recover when you have a sugar addiction was just, the books were telling us to stop eating it, but they weren't helping us figure out the addiction piece of it all. So I decided I was going to go away and do my master's on the topic. This was 1994. And I went to Trinity College, Dublin, Ireland. I got accepted to do my master's thesis on it. I was so excited because I was like you, Rich, which is so wonderful about your energy. I was so fresh and on fire, and I knew in my soul and in my bones I was onto something. And I blasted my graduate committee with all my little scraps of paper and my little bits of reference to the research and the science. And they looked at me and they said, listen, we'll get back to you next week. So we met again and they're like, yeah, so you're going to have to pick a different master's thesis topic because there's no evidence to suggest that sugar is harmful or addictive. And one man on the committee said to me, he was actually a chancellor of some kind. He said, you will not embarrass this institution with this topic. Pick another one. Right. But it's so wonderful because I was lonely just walking. I was the only one talking about it. This was pre-internet. And then Dr. Kathleen Desmaisons wrote some books and I hugged them and I was starting to feel the beginning that the world was waking up to what Yudkin and William Duffy was capturing in their books. So fast forward. Here we have Rich, 6 years in, still fresh and on fire and new energy coming into this movement. And so it's so wonderful. I would love for you to go back a little bit and talk a bit more about that depression, suicide, and sugar link, because I think you've got some very interesting science that most people don't talk about that I think will help people feel hope about being happier in the future if they can get unhooked.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's funny you said that because just yesterday I sent an email to my brother. God, I hope I'm not revealing anything here, but well, let's just say his wife is taking some, being treated for depression, has some pills and then, like a lot of, I mean, I can't remember what the numbers are, but it's millions and millions and millions of people are taking pills for depression. And as Dr. Palmer says, it ain't working. But I sent him this podcast and mentioned Dr. Palmer's new book, which I haven't read yet, but I know what it's going to be about, brain energy. And he's putting people on no carb, no sugar diets and no, keto type diets. And it's like, I said, try it. I mean, just 21 days, just try it. See what happens. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. But, it's easier said than done. But I want him, I'd like to see her happy and off the stuff. But Dr. Lustig a number of doctors are covering the science. I'll try to give it my layman's interpretation. But, as Dr. Lustig says, when we eat sugar, since sugar is a poison, we can't metabolize it. It goes to the liver. The liver's got to deal with poison. So it starts, as Lustig says, he goes to about 20 different things it does. But one of the things it does, it signals it signals the pancreas to secrete insulin because we got excess glucose. And, what do you do with excess glucose? Well, you got to put it somewhere. So you store it as fat, which ain't good. But when you have high levels of glucose, high level of insulin in your system, it does a number of bad things. And one of them it does is let's just say it puts your leptin to sleep. Leptin's this hormone. It sits here. It's an important hormone because it controls your satiation center, tells you when you're full. When it's asleep, then you overeat. Meanwhile, you're eating this stuff with sugar in it. And sugar is also then triggering the release of dopamine. Well, dopamine, what is dopamine? Well, dopamine is your pleasure drug. How do we get dopamine? Well, we get it from sex. We get it from gambling. We get it from drinking. We get it from drugs. We get it from smoking. We get it from a lot of stuff. And most of those things we're not doing all the time. But one thing a lot of people are doing is eating all the time, but you don't want a lot of excess dopamine in your system. It should be a temporary thing. But excess dopamine has an interesting side effect. But dopamine is your pleasure drug. It's not your happiness drug. When they measure happiness in people in countries around the world, they don't measure dopamine, they measure serotonin. So we like to have serotonin. That's good. But not a lot of serotonin right now in the United States. Serotonin levels are very low, one of the lowest in the world. Well, why is that? You know, why is the third generation sugar addicts having low serotonin levels? Well, basically for a couple of reasons. Number one is excess dopamine tends to retard those 14 serotonin receptors. There's 14 of them to bring serotonin to the brain. And 90%, 95% of the serotonin is produced in our gut biome. So a little bit it gets out. We want it to get to the brain, so we're happy. Well, we don't want it retarded. We don't want it put to sleep. So we got the insulin, dropping down the leptin, which now we got the excess dopamine, retarded the receptors. The other side of the coin is when we eat sugar and processed foods, there's one thing they don't do. That's feed the biome. Who the biome? Well, if you don't know this, and it's really one of the newest fields that I find absolutely fascinating. I say newest that we're really getting onto. There's a whole world inside of you. That's where the bacteria live. That's your gut biome. And it's in all another world. It's all encased. It's two worlds. It's you outside and then they're inside. We got 10 trillion cells. They got 100 trillion bacteria, good ones and bad ones. But you want the good ones. You want them in balance. And if you don't not feed those good ones, they get hungry and they start nibbling on that mucus inside your duodenum. Next thing you get what's called leaky gut. It's the tie-ins are incredible. How important that biome is. And how do you feed the biome? Fruits, vegetables, and fiber, not sugar, not processed food. Now you starve the biome. What are they doing? Yeah, they ain't doing good stuff. They're getting hungry. It also affects the serotonin. So it's like you get a double whammy. You're not getting it produced, you're not getting it there. It's like, and you wonder why we're getting depressed, why we're having suicide. And it's the same chart as it is for sugar consumption in the United States. I mean, it's all the numbers. You can't. I mean, it's all there, and it all makes sense. And the reason we don't know it because it's been covered up by an inept government. You know, it's sad. But we're gonna this grassroots thing is going to work, Florence.
It is.
There's so many good people out there that I'm starting to meet that are getting together and starting to make it happen. And that's one good thing about the internet. We get this stuff out fast now. They can't hide it. You
Right.
know, they can't
Right.
hide it.
Right. In fact, you know what? Dr. Lustig, in my last interview with him, he said, Florence, it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
There's a tipping
Yeah.
point. We are waking up. And I think I can imagine a future where sugar, processed, refined, ultra processed and processed carbohydrates are treated like tobacco. You need to be 18.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
We protect children and their bodies and their
Yes.
brains with everything
Yes.
thought that they are fed. It's their constitutional right to be protected from food that we know scientifically now will literally, damage the biochemical foundation of their brains and bodies.
Look, let's jump into what we talked about before we started about the women. Can I pick on you guys for a minute?
Yeah, take it away. Yeah.
I one of my chapters is called "A Women's Love Affair with Sugar," and I do go in there and say, "Hey, look, I'm not a misogynist, and I got to tread lightly. I know where this political correctness, and wokeness, but we got to talk about this because the kids are so important,
Mhm.
and women are the gatekeepers. They're the ones that have the biggest influence on what our children eat. Now, I mentioned my mom didn't know any better. Nobody did at our time, but we know better now. But our babies are being born pre-diabetic, obese, and addicted to sugar out of the womb. We have unhealthy babies being born. And the average weight of the babies worldwide now is up a pound in this past 20, 30 years. And that pound is all fat. So this is serious stuff. And the women have got to know this. We've got to get them to understand this. And I'm trying to peel a number of different. Well, first thing is my favorite story, and I want anybody that's listening is next time you go out to dinner, as a couple with some other couples, go to a nice restaurant. You've had a nice meal, everything's been great, and you finished up, and the waiter's come and clean the table, and he says, "Call for your dessert." I want you to watch the women's eyes at the table when he says the word dessert. And they'll go, like Pavlov's dog. No, I'm sorry that I had to say that. I want to make a point. They go, and then they go, honey, let's split a dessert. You know, I mean, I told that story. This is the truth. I was in Dominican Republic at a conference with a bunch of guys. I mean, at my table, and there was about some guy had a big group, a conference speaker had about 20 people, 8, 9 couples, and they just finished eating. And I said, I wanted the girls to get dessert. Every woman, not one guy, all the gals got it, went to the dessert table at the buffet. And I said, you know. So this is what we're up against. And I'll take a step further. My dentist was a normal dentist. He didn't preach against sugar, but when I quit it, in about 2 years, I remember he's cleaning my teeth. He looked at me and says, have you done anything different? I said, what do you mean? He said, why? I said, what's wrong? Because I always used to have cavities, And he says, you don't have any plaque. I said, huh? No. He said, what'd you do? I said, well, I quit eating sugar. I haven't had a cavity or plaque since I quit sugar. And so I worked there for a couple of years and finally got him out of my deal. He's as crazy as I am about this stuff. He doesn't eat sugar, doesn't eat processed foods. He's into it. He's healthy. He dropped about 20 pounds. He's high energy. He's like, his wife is a dermatologist, doctor, surgeon, Maria Stella, beautiful woman. She did my skin cancer surgery right here. She's only one of 3 surgeons in Medellin that can do surgery near the eye for this. So I had to go to for post-op, for checkup. Beautiful gal, about 41, 42. So I don't know, we're just chatting about stuff. And she's somehow said she was pre-diabetic. And I looked at her, I said, Maria Stella, you got to quit eating sugar. And I swear to God, when as soon as I said that, she looked at me like I had stabbed her in the heart. She was nothing to do with that. Since then, I've talked to Juan Carlos, my doctor, and dentist. I said, "How's it going at home?" Because you got 2 boys, you're no sugar. She said, "We're having serious arguments about it because she wants to give him the candy and the ice cream and the M&Ms, and I don't want him to eat it. I mean, I hope I haven't caused a divorce, but that's how serious it is. And here, she should be the gatekeeper. So, if women would, I think I'm 78. I go to the gym 4 days a week. And Florence, you know what I have not seen in the gymnasium in the last, well, 10 or 15 years? A woman my age. Now, why is that? Why shouldn't they be in there? Why shouldn't they be working out? You know? Well, probably because they don't have any energy. Because if they're eating sugar and processed foods, they got no energy. And we know that energy reduces ATP. We know we have low energy. And then you're going to gain the weight. So now you're gaining weight, you're getting heavier, you're getting fatter, you're getting unhealthier, and you're getting lower energy. Of course, you don't want to go to the gym. Plus that, you got to wear a ton of makeup. I got this. I got to read this. When I was doing some more research, I just did this 3 days ago. For those of you who have heard about Chat GBT, that's that newest thing, artificial intelligence, like a big giant Google, but you just type in a question. So I typed in, is a sugar bad for your skin? And this chatbot, artificial intelligence says eating too much sugar can contribute to the development of acne and other skin conditions. High blood sugar levels can lead to inflammation, which can make acne worse. Additionally, a diet high in sugar can cause wrinkles and age spots by breaking down collagen and elastin in the skin. To keep skin healthy, it is best to limit your intake of sugary foods and drinks. And I'm thinking about with women, if you would quit the sugar, now you have energy, now you'll exercise, now you keep in good shape, now you have good skin, you're going to look beautiful in your 40s, 50s, 60s. I mean, you can do it. And there's nothing prettier than a woman who takes care of herself as she matures. They're golden, but you don't see many of them. And it's because of the freaking sugar. Excuse me. I mean, it's a shame. Our gatekeepers have got to get on board, Florence. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound like I'm picking on you, but I mean,
I don't feel
it's
that
so
way at all,
important.
and I don't think any woman that's listening to this is disagreeing with you. I think we're there. We get
Yeah.
it. And you know what, Rich?
Yeah.
I'm going to do a presentation. I'm going to make a commitment to this. I have collected advertising over about 40 or 50 years. They go back as early as the 30s, where women were being manipulated to drink Coca-Cola because it kept them thin. So they use the vanity argument to eat the sugar,
Yep.
eat our junk,
Yep.
you'll curb your appetite, you'll be beautiful, you'll have energy, you'll be thinner. So vanity got us hooked on this stuff, and vanity is going to help us get unhooked because
Yes. Good point.
we're
Good
miserable.
point.
We're miserable on so many different levels, and we're
Yep.
waking up.
Yep.
We've been manipulated. And we've dropped the ball, and we've abdicated our responsibility to protect our children and to feed our families the best possible food. We have dropped the ball. And we did it through all kinds of manipulation and marketing. Like Cheerios are part of a Heart Smart breakfast, Rich. We see that shit and we go, okay, I'll feed my kids Cheerios. Well, it's not part of a Heart Smart breakfast. It's flour and sugar and shit. If you want to eat oatmeal, but you don't need the processed junk. But we bought it, Rich. We just trusted our doctors for 2 generations of mothers, talked mothers out of breastfeeding, and we bought it. We bought it. Okay, formula's better. Okay, like what? We have to wake up and we need to claim our power, and we need to step into the call. Like if anything's going to turn the food culture malfunction that we're in around, it's up to women. Thank God for the male doctors that are doing such good research and writing their books. But at the grassroots level, this is a women's movement to own and to shift. It just is.
Let me tell you, and I haven't been picking on the men here, but you know how the men get their sugar fix?
Alcohol, Rich. We all know that.
Yes,
They're addicted
both.
to
Yep. So,
porn and alcohol. That's what men have as their
hey,
addictions. Yes,
yeah.
that's the truth.
Well, at least the porn doesn't make me fat, you know?
Well, I'm telling you, it's
No,
toxic to your brain,
no.
sugar.
But
But
we're allowed to have a glass of red wine now and then because you get resveratrol and it's pretty good for the heart. So I mean, but no, you're right. We all bought in and we just don't know. And I'm like,
yep,
I just so thankful to be alive because I
yeah,
was dead. I was dead man walking. And by the grace of God, by pure blind luck, I read Sugar Crush, did the detox diet, had the 21-day miracle. And I didn't tell you this, but speaking of miracles, that was the first miracle. The fact that I would take the book there, and the day I take it, here's the wife. It says, she's
yeah,
a holistic. I mean, what are the odds in that? Second one is
yeah,
my elevator was out for a while here in my building. So I wanted to go rent an apartment. So decided to go look. And I went over to a little area in Medellin called Laureles. And I only went to one place. And I went in this gal. She was a gal, had it. She's going to rent it out. She's going to be out of town. And I didn't end up renting it. I ended up staying in my place and walking 220 steps at 77. No, 70. Yeah, 78. But the this gal is a publisher. She publishes women's books mainly. So I started talking about killing you softly, and she said, "Well, we should do it." So I signed up, and I'm actually paying the money right now. You know, so I'm committed. I'm putting money in. But what are the odds that the only place I went to look at was a publisher, and now it's my publisher. And the third one was when I saw your last summit. I never, I always do the freebie stuff and look at the videos, but I don't pay the money, But I said, yeah, I saw you had written transcripts. I said, that's only $97. It saved me like 20 hours. I can just look at the transcripts, be a lot quicker. So I sent, the money in, and next thing you know, I get this 15-minute invite with you. That's okay. Well, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but geez, great. And we start talking about the book, and you get all excited. So, I mean, what are the odds and all that stuff? It's like so, and this is going to sound crazy, and I don't want to. I hadn't even published the book yet, but I did Oprah Winfrey show back in '95 for a company I had in the States. It's about the lottery business, but if this book gets some traction, I could see me going back in Oprah again for a totally different subject. Joe Rogan likes this stuff. TED Talk. I've already got one of my buddies who has a very good friend who runs a television program for another. I mean, who knows? But it's not, it's not about me. It's about the kids. It's about the future. And we got to help. We got to do our thing.
we
Got
really,
to help.
we really do. Yeah, and thank you for so
Yeah.
much for all your energy, being 78 and turning around to spend those final year, that final quarter, as you say, dedicated to this, because it truly is urgent. And you're right, it's about the children. And if we can't do it for ourselves, oh my God, let's think about the fact that we're robbing children of happy childhoods.
Florence, this is sound crazy, but one of the things you get and as you get older is you do pick up some wisdom and experience along the way and empathy. But it's like to me, I'm just so blessed that the last quarter of my life is my best quarter. If you can be healthy in your last quarter with all your knowledge and wisdom and experience, and it's like, what a great deal. But most people in the last quarter, it's just doctors and hospitals and operations and,
Yes.
and nursing homes. And like, hey, but you don't have to do that.
Right.
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 Yeah.
We don't. There's an alternative. It's Whole Foods, and you will fall in love with them. Just give it time, as Rich has said. Awesome. Any final words of wisdom you would like to share before we wrap up today?
I can't, I think we've touched on a lot of stuff. When we finish, I'll think of some things, but
Yeah.
I'm just motivated more than ever to get this book finished and I keep getting new ideas, but I'm ready. I mean, I'm in a writing mode now, about 50% done and saving the hard ones for last, all the technical stuff, but I know what it is. So we'll get it figured out. And thanks for, having me on. I'm just hope it, hope we get motivated somebody to get off the sugar. That's what we're trying to do.
That's it. That's it. And we'll have you back again when your book is actually launched and people can buy it. I will have you back and I will plug the heck out of it because it sounds like it's going to be a real gem in the field. So thank you for all your work.
Well, you're quite welcome and see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in this week. If you would like more interviews, more information, and more inspiration on how to break up with sugar, go to my YouTube channel, Kick Sugar Coach, or my website, kicksugarcoach.com. See you next week.